To delve deeper into the climate change story, I hopped into the car to visit Long Clawson Dairy and Bridge Farm.
I'm on my way to Leicester. Yeah, feeling all set and raring to go. I arrived at the hotel in Leicester and eventually managed to find my room. I think this is the wrong room. So I'm in the hotel room and this is Leicester. Well, not just this room obviously, but we're in Leicester. I'm not going to pan around because then you'll be able to see the mess that I made in the corner with my bags. So excited for the day tomorrow. It's early. I'm awake. Oh, that was my shoulder. Ow. Light. Oh, wow. It's very early. But I'm ready. So I'm not allowed to wear any jewellery. I'll be going on site. God. These earrings are so fiddly. Right, that's one. Let me get this one out. Why did I wear the most difficult earrings? Oh my god, I actually can't get it out. Right, I'm gonna have to use the mirror. So this is where I need to go, and it's all of a 11-minute drive.
So this is our first entry into our high care, and this is an area where obviously it's really important for us to have top hygiene. So over this line, over this kind of barrier here, we cannot have any shoes, any contaminant objects, and everything will have to be sanitised before it goes over there.
I'm gonna have to go and tiptoes, this is hilarious.
If you just grab your hair, almost kind of make a makeshift bun, I'd suggest. Yeah, and then just basically tuck as much in as you can.
Okay. Oh wow.
It is wonderful.
It is, isn't it?
Spin over and put the wellies on.
Thank you very much.
Quite sprayy. If you stay here, and all you need to do is walk through.
So Kim,
Yeah.
talking about food security, and we're in a cheese factory here, and just give us a little bit of context. Tell me a little bit about you guys, and what you're focused on, and how this all links.
Yeah. So Long Clawson's a farming cooperative, so we draw the milk from our own member farmers, which is hugely important to us as part of food security. We're also blessed in making Stilton cheese, which we believe is the world's best cheese. And that cheese has got a protected trademark, so the cheese can only be made in 3 counties of Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, and we can only draw our milk from those 3 counties. So we're very, very conscious on supporting the local farming community and getting our raw material from a local source, which is key in sustainability, and working with those farmers to build plans with those farmers to ensure that they pass the land on and their farms in better condition to the next generation.
Now, you're a British producer, supplying British products. Do you think that as a country, that we are self-reliant, or that we need to be more focused on local produce?
So I think it's well documented that the UK is a net importer of dairy products. So we do buy in a lot of dairy products. We do export some of our products and see that as a massive growth opportunity. So there's a balance in sustainability and making sure that everybody is focused to the sustainability of the UK's food production. But equally, if we want to grow our economy on the world markets, we do have to have one eye onto exporting as well.
So how would you say we could, because we need to trade as well, right? There's certain things that we can't produce in Britain. How can we balance imports with local produce?
So one thing, there's a big opportunity for people in the dairy sector to look at products that we import and try and manufacture some of those products, and to work with our farmers to grow our pool of milk so that we're able to manufacture more products that we sell on the domestic market, at the same time help grow the UK economy by exporting.
And what was your expectations when we left the EU?
There was a clear message that it was not going to be easy, it was going to be hard work.
Yeah.
And as a business, we're very focused on that. We put the support infrastructure and the teams in place in our export department, and we put a lot of focus. We put the effort and we put the focus. We could have spent a lot of time moaning about what we have to do, but we focused on the task and made sure that we got the infrastructure to manage the task. And yes, it does take a lot more time and a lot more support to achieve the exports that we did prior to Brexit, but that is part of what the British consumer chose to do.
So what could the government be doing to support manufacturers like yourself right now to support food security and, for people to eat more local produce?
Yeah, we've been very blessed, probably because of the product we manufacture, that we've had visits from senior ministers both in the trade and industry department and export department, and we've discussed with them the challenges we face. A lot of that, as I've just mentioned, is around the amount of paperwork we have to complete, and how they could, as a government, look at some of those protocols and try and help streamline those protocols to free up our time so that we can focus on developing those markets overseas, and at the same time acknowledge the cost of production and the support our farmers have to have from the government to produce the product domestically in the UK.
That sounds like an excellent, initiative, because that's what I've been hearing. Cost of food doesn't always reflect cost of production. On the side of local and obviously producing and growing everything here and being, really reliant on UK soil, why is that going to help food security rather than, those people that are relying on other supply chains outside of the UK?
Well, I think I don't need to remind your public that are going to see this programme. We've all seen what's happened with energy when we got over dependent on energy coming from overseas, and it is cheaper sometimes to buy these products overseas, but we pay a price. Part of the price is to make sure that we support the farmers, but it costs a little bit more to ensure that the products can be grown. And then if we do have whatever weather conditions in other parts of the world that impact food production, it's within our control. We're not reliant on other governments, other politics, other people around the world. It is actually within the control of the British government and the British people. And as we stand here today, this morning, the news is full of the problems that the manufacturers of products for food have bought a lot of things like tomatoes and salad products from overseas, and they've had some really adverse weather conditions, and that supply has been interrupted. So keeping it in our control is always going to be the best way forward.
And how can we ensure that we are going more local? That, is it a case of government intervention or retailers supporting you?
So I think it's a combination of everything. It's the public have got their part to play, the government, the manufacturers, people like ourselves, and part of what we do in our marketing team, we make sure that our consumers know where our product comes from, where we're sourcing it, we tell the whole story, and people understand that maybe they pay a little bit more for our product, but they understand what they're paying for, and it is still good value for money, and they are buying into the security of both the manufacturing of the product, but also the sustainability of our farms producing the milk for the future.
And on that topic of sustainability, food security isn't just about accessibility, it is also about the sustainable supply of it. And there is a lot of arguments to say that climate change is going to affect, there's evidence that it's affecting our supply chain.
Yeah. Well, we all get a lot of news in the press about the climate change and the impact of climate. It will impact UK farming. Our farmers are very adaptable. They will need government support in the way they change their farming methods to adapt to climate change. UK farmers are very versatile and very adaptable, so I think they'll rise to the challenge. They do need some guidance and support from the government on how they meet that challenge, but we're in a good place, and I don't think the UK farming would ever get into the position that the Americans did with the Dust Bowl, where you forget the value of the soil. Without looking after the soil, you can't grow the products, you can't grow grass, and without grass, there's no milk.
And you guys do a lot of work in sustainability too as a manufacturer. You know, in what ways are you helping in that?
So as a manufacturer, as I mentioned, we draw all our milk from our own member farmers, and we're working with those and an expert outside body to look at how we can support the farmers with the knowledge and the skills to develop sustainability. You know, there is no single roadmap for any farm. Every farm is different. Every soil is different, from sandy soils to clays to peat. So what we're here to do is to help coordinate that knowledge and that knowledge transfer to our farmers and support their farmers on that journey to improve soil sustainability, the farming, the welfare of the animals on the farm. We're here to support our farmers on that journey.
Now, you mentioned soil a couple of times there. Why is soil important in the production of food and food security?
I think the best example is if you go back to what happened in America in the 1930s, where they didn't understand the impact of looking after the soils. They ended up with the Dust Bowls, and then they ended up with effectively a desert where they couldn't grow anything. So to grow anything, you have to look after the soil structure and the nutrients and the minerals to make sure that you can grow and make sure that you improve the quality of the soil to hand on to the next generation.
Well, thank you so much, Kim. It's been
You're
an
welcome.
absolute pleasure to talk with you today.
Yeah, and I think you're off to one of our farms to delve a little bit more into some of those things.
I am indeed. I'm going to put on a different pair of wellies and meet the cows.
What would you like to say? Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's just said it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, much quieter than the factory.
As I say, they're thinking it's time to come in, look. One inch hard. Then obviously wash mode, and then they just attach those onto the other. Simple as, and that principle hasn't changed for 50 years.
Thank you so much for meeting with me, Paul. So when we talk about food security, I was saying this to Kim earlier, we normally think about accessibility and food prices. We don't normally think about climate change. So how are these two elements actually linked together?
Well, in my opinion, food security depends what types of food you're referring to, because we can grow and rear large amounts of some foods in the UK, if it's the UK we're referring to, and yet our climate isn't suitable for other crops and other plants and other means of livestock production. So we may be able to produce large amounts of some foods, but of course, as an affluent nation, we've developed quite a broad diet, and we require food that we can't grow efficiently in the UK. So we either refer to growing that unsustainably, glass house or whatever it is, or we actually fly or ship product in, which is chilled and obviously has got environmental implications. So I think there is a link between eating seasonal, regional produce versus trying to source a diet that is actually not sustainable in the UK.
Do you think, you mentioned seasonal there, do you think that consumers are aware of the benefits of eating seasonal? Will they always want their blueberries when they want their blueberries?
I think we've been brought up, the last generation, my generation probably, have been brought up that's always been available, whether it's been initially tinned and more recently, more technology to get fresh produce all around the world. We can have a fantastic array of, fresh, totally unseasonal produce. And and I think we've just come to expect that. You know, our parents and grandparents would have eaten a more seasonal based diet where they, you know, where truly some products were a luxury at certain times of the year.
And in terms of going and being a bit more local and being seasonal, what would be the benefit to that in terms of food security and having access to that food?
I think if we consumed more as a nation of the produce that we can grow efficiently in this country, then I think that would increase food availability for all, albeit at the expense of variety. I think that would have a positive impact on, you know, on the amount of food available. You know, niche products take more inputs to grow.
Now, tell me about the work that your farm's doing in terms of sustainability and how that sort of helps promote food security.
Okay, our farm is broadly 300 hectares of grassland, and that grassland is not, or very rarely, cultivated. So we are as close probably as we can get to a regenerative farming system with grass and clover lays. We are feeding a pasture-based system to milking cows and young stock to maximise the consumption of grazed pasture, so that we're converting grass into high solids milk.
So what is explain this a little bit more? The pasture-based system. What is that?
Okay, so we the farm is divided into areas that can be grazed by the cows in a 12-hour period, and the cows walk long distances to access a different paddock every 12 hours. They then consume all the pasture in that paddock in that 12 hours, and then they, depending on the time of the year and the growth rates, they'll move around the farm faster or slower depending on growth rates. So it's not, whilst there is some grain fed as a make-up, effectively to make up the diet, but when grass growth is fast, then the 90+% of the animal's diet is from grazed grass.
So what kind of benefit is this diet having? And you mentioned regenerative farming there. You know, explain a little bit about this and how this all links and the benefit of it.
Yeah, the one of the big benefits of rotational grazing system is the health of the soil, but based on the health of the grass. So the grass has a good root structure, and we are experiencing we're testing high organic matters in our soils. So our soils are now in the mid-teens % of organic matter. So they're very good moisture retentive soils. They're very fertile soils. You know, and from a sustainability point of view, there's a huge carbon store in organic matter in the soil.
And what does that mean? What kind of benefit does that have?
Well, you've heard of sequestration of carbon. I've got some figures, but I can get those. You know, with organic matter is an indication of the tons of carbon stored in the top in the topsoil, and you know, based on 1,500 tons per hectare, I think, of topsoil. According to soil analyses and a conversion of organic matter to carbon, our farm is sequestering 1,200 tons of carbon into the topsoil per year. So it's huge carbon. It can't go on forever because the soil can only contain so much carbon. But ultimately, that carbon has benefit from fertility, you know, and for moisture retention of the soil to grow grass efficiently.
So what makes a healthy soil?
Oh, blimey, no. Well, first of all, it's the soil structure. So the root has to be able to work its way through the soil to access the nutrients. The nutrients have to be readily available to the root, and you know, organic matter, you know, is supporting diversity within the soil. So, you know, soil life effectively.
And why is this so important for the food system? Why do we need this soil to be healthy?
In our system, it's all we've got. So we're feeding our cows on grass, and that grass is grown from the soil. We apply inorganic nitrogen. So we do apply. We're not organic. We apply purchased nitrogen, and that's all. We don't apply agrochemicals. We don't apply any other base fertilizers. It's just it's the cows, the grazing, the regularly grazing, the manure being put back to the soil. Any manure that we store, the cows are housed in the winter, so they came in early December and they've been out since early February. So that winter period when the soil is just too wet to hold the cows without damaging the soil, that manure that's stored in the winter is applied back in the dry months of the summer. So we store that and we add it back. So it's the fertilisation of the soil. We've got clover in the ley, which fixes nitrogen from the air. So really, the soil is all we've got to feed the cows with.
And then obviously, it's a whole circle, isn't it? Then the cows, obviously, if you're having well-fed cows, I imagine that has an effect on the produce that you're creating as well for people that are eventually going to, use those cows, whether or not it's for dairy produce or for meat production.
Yes, our system is far less intense than a traditional UK dairy farming system.
Okay.
So because we don't buy the amount of imported inputs, we are quite low yielding. So the actual cow production in litres is considerably lower than a lot of conventional UK farms. So that has its own challenges, that if we all did the same, production from the UK would be lower. So that system doesn't necessarily suit all farms and all systems.
And in terms of, the future of food and moving, we're hearing a lot about plant-based milks, for example, or drinks, I should call them rather, and also even things like cultivated meat, albeit I know obviously you're in the dairy sector. What's your thoughts about the future of traditional farming and its place to feed Brits? UK farming is well placed with knowledge, technology, people that are committed. We have a good climate, we have good soils. We're well placed to feed the UK. We probably lack processing capacity in certain times of the year for certain products, so that it makes it more difficult to get product to market. But no, the UK farming industry is geared up to deliver and feed the UK. But we have a diverse industry, and that's a good thing. The dairy industry, we produce most of our milk in the spring and summer. There's some that produce it in the autumn and winter, and some do it all year round, and that gives a level supply of because we still have quite a high demand for fresh milk, which is unusual. And then obviously there are manufacturers that are processing dairy. So alternative products, I'm sure they may have a place in the diet. I think as far as their production goes, they just need to satisfy the sustainability criteria. What is the use of resources to get them to the consumer? What is their demand for water? And so as long as they can meet similar criteria that we're being asked to meet with agricultural products or traditional products, why not? But I've yet to be convinced that these products can actually meet those criteria. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is so much to consider as a farmer, as someone within the food and drink sector. And you were saying off camera you were up until 2 a.m. Carving
this morning, carving cows. Yeah.
Carving cows. I mean, I think that people perhaps don't appreciate all the things that you have to balance. It must be incredibly difficult. You must be exhausted.
Well, our system relies on, let's say, carving the cows in the spring, and that's not necessarily typical in the UK. There are all sorts of systems that are suitable. Our farm lends itself to a spring calving grazing system. We've invested in the infrastructure to graze cows, so it relies on getting the cows calved early in the spring, so they can maximise their intakes of grass throughout the season. And as grass starts to grow faster as we get into March and then April, we've got the herd ready, calved and ready to consume that grass as it grows. So yes, we have a busy few weeks of calving the cows, but we're rearing the replacement heifers. All the females that are born are replacements for for our dairy herd. And all the males, they all go to a farmer friend of mine who rears those, again, at grass, predominantly for a beef market 2 years down the line. So, all our animals have a purpose in life, and we're interested particularly in the females and the dairy cows. So, all our replacements are born on farm and they're reared on farm. So,
in episode 5, I head back to London and meet with Charles Bourne of Westerway Sausages, who I know loves a bit of soil chat. Tune in next time.